look, that's an eyeball. He's holding an eyeball. That's Seven's eyeball. No. Captain Spot, Stardate 61 2023.1. Welcome aboard Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me as always, she violates the Temporal Prime Directive every time she blinks. It's Ambassador Deneé.
Blink, 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 blink.
You see, that was a butterfly effect thing, because the air displaced by your blinking eyelids is causing ripples.
Hey, listen,
space-time.
these fake eyelashes were expensive. I will blink them as much as I possibly can. Also, I'm not wearing fake eyelashes.
And speaking of not wearing fake eyelashes, we have a special guest with us this week. It is that was an awesome segue.
That was
by the way,
great.
10 out of 10 for segues. It's fellow CinemaSins writer Daniel Cardoso.
Hello.
Woo.
How do you know I'm not wearing fake eyelashes?
Oh, that was very presumptuous of me. I do pride myself on being able to tell. But I could be wrong. Are you wearing? You don't have to tell us.
I'm keeping that secret to myself.
What if your entire beard was just all fake eyelashes?
Oh man, I was getting not even that it's fake. It's just eyelashes. In the upkeep, the maintenance. I mean, it's worth it. It looks glorious, but the maintenance is unreal.
It's a commitment.
That's amazing. So we have Daniel on the show. I think you are the only one of the team, other than Chris. Yep. Then other than Chris, who has not been on to discuss something that they want to talk about. So it was only fair to pop you into whatever seat we have free on the bridge. And what episode have you picked to for us to talk about this week?
And what's your chair? Because I want to know where you're sitting on the bridge.
Important question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, which one are you choosing?
Which position? Yeah. Which position of the bridge are you sitting in?
Oh, I mean, I think it would depend on which ship, but I think the helm. Like, if it's got the TNG style two drivers, with the swivel, I want to just slide into one of those and be right up in front. You know.
Yeah.
Nice.
You got to get the best view there, haven't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, they're usually like the first person also to like die if you're not a main character, but like
yes.
Other than that, like you get the whole view screen, like when like you're having those really cool conversations with alien races. They're just like you don't have to say anything, you just have to sit there and just watch.
It is amazing. Like Picard will have some of the most intense conversations, and if you do look at the extras that are just sat there at the console, they're just booping away, and I'm like, they're talking about blowing up the ship. What are you doing? Are you like doing some maintenance? Like, are you playing solitaire? That person was playing Gallagher. He didn't think we'd notice. I was like, how are you not more panicked right now?
There's got to be like at least one clip where someone's just like, that's like a, huh?
Yeah.
Especially with Riker constantly leaning over them.
I feel like that happened in the Orville when I watched the Orville, the two guys that are kind of at the helm, and then they're like listening to the captain and first officer argue, and they would just sort of give each other the side eye, and they had a lot of character, and they are the forefront of the shot. So we could focus on them, but a lot of times in TNG and that they kind of fade into the background, even though they're in the foreground. It's really, that's actually a talent when you think about it.
Oh, it is. Not acting is as much of a talent as acting in those situations.
Yep.
That's amazing. And your episode of choice, sir?
It is episode 6 from season 5 of Star Trek Voyager, titled Timeless.
I love this one so much. Deneé, when was the last time that you watched Voyager?
Voyager. Okay. So it was when it came out, when it originally aired.
Uh-huh.
So that would have been only a couple years ago, since we don't age at all anymore.
It ran 1994 to 2001, I think.
So when it first came out, because I remember when TNG went off the air, and I remember when Voyager started, and there was a female captain, and that was interesting, and she had such a different sort of like vibe than Picard in a way, and I wasn't quite sure like how to relate to her because I was younger, so she was more of a mom than she was.
Oh, for real? Yeah,
like
absolutely,
like a heroine for me.
Yeah,
but I really enjoyed some of the other characters on the show quite a lot. So I think I watched probably the first season, and then I haven't seen anything since. I have no idea how any of it goes. So this is going to be interesting because I'll recognize the characters, but I won't recognize any of the storylines at all. Like I don't.
That's interesting.
I remember that they were far, far away, and I remember mostly just the character, like personality types. The doctor is one of my favorites. Neelix was really interesting to me. And
hated by fans.
Really?
In general, Neelix has a bad rap. I love him. I think Ethan Phillips is incredible, but he was not a fan favorite at the time.
But do you know why?
It was kind of like the Wesley thing. He was a bit too try hard and a bit too over. Well, first of all, he's an absolute creep with Kes. In like to begin, I think that was a bad start. His evolution post Kes was much better. To begin with, they didn't really know what to do with Neelix.
Okay, I do remember that there was a young person named Kes. Now,
very young, 3 years old, in fact.
What? Wait, what?
They age differently, so the Acompans mature at like 6 months, but they only live like 9 years.
Okay, what an interesting thing to make people think about Star Trek. Yep. I can now understand maybe a little bit of that.
I don't remember what was like the nature of their relationship again.
They were together.
They were? Okay.
And then they broke up because he got very possessive. And she's like, look, I lived for 9 years. I'm not going to spend them all with you. Like, was essentially the breakdown of it because he got like super jealous and possessive.
Wasn't there like a thing with like Tom Paris or something? Yep. It was like a love triangle or...
Yep.
Yeah. That was a strange part of that.
That was a lot of season 1 and season 2 was that love triangle, and it was annoying as balls. But they moved... Like, Voyager found its beard in season 3/4, like a lot of Star Trek.
I just remember another character. Is it Chakotay?
Yeah, Chakotay.
Wow, I pulled that
Nicely
I don't even know where that came from. He was really interesting. I liked him.
Voyager's problematic. He's really, really interesting. He is excellent. So he was the first Native American inspired character on the show. However, the advisor that they employed to make sure that they were accurate has since been allegedly and I think proved to be a complete fraud. Like, has no Native American background, made it all up, swindled them for all of the money.
So, no, does that mean that the character itself suffered in Voyager because of getting bad information?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. It's so I'm not one to comment on it because I don't know what is correct from wrong, but they didn't get it right is what I'm going to land on. But he's still a beloved character. Right. Because Robert Beltran is a great actor.
Oh, and then I remember the female Klingon.
B'Elanna. Yes.
She was also very interesting to me. Imagine
incredible.
That. She was my favorite character.
Well, they were both like the Maquis, right?
Correct.
Yes. What was that? That sounds familiar. Explain that, Daniel.
They were essentially like a sort of like rebel group. I think in the beginning, like they were being treated as like terrorists, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I forget what their like cause was, but like they were kind of doing like run and gun kind of guerrilla warfare, sort of kind of different missions and things. I don't remember what like the reasoning was, but they were basically wanted criminals by the Federation.
So how did they get on the ship?
So they'll seem familiar to you, Deneé, because when we've watched Deep Space Nine, the Maquis have been mentioned because they fight against the Cardassians, and the Cardassians are the ones that have like subjugated Bajor. And because the Federation wouldn't step in, the Maquis is like a group of like rebellious Bajorans, some humans, a mix of people that basically, they fight dirty and they use guerrilla tactics to try and teach the Cardassians a lesson. A really quick, brief thing about Voyager, a ship of Maquis get chucked into the Delta Quadrant at the same time as Voyager, but their ship is destroyed, so the crews have to merge. That was one of the most interesting things, was this merger of a Federation crew and a Maquis crew, and Chakotay was their leader. Right. So when the first officer dies, he becomes first officer because he had the most experience and
That makes sense, because I remember there being tension, but I couldn't remember why. So now we're going into season 6. So what an interesting thing to drop into, because I'm like you said, there was a lot of stuff that was going on in season 1 and 2 that was maybe resolved personality wise, and then here we are in season 6.
Yeah,
that I think is some of their like failings, was that like they didn't bring some of that stuff, like some of the stuff that was really interesting from the first couple of seasons that could have been interesting to like keep playing with as it goes down the line. Like they just kind of like you kind of almost forget that those characters weren't in Starfleet at the beginning of the show.
Oh yeah, they refer back to it in a couple of episodes at this point, but by this time the Maquis have been wiped out, and they kind of forget that all of their crimes have been forgiven, and they kind of forget they don't mention it at all. There is no conflict anymore. So considering it's such an overarching story, Voyager had a great 1-episode memory. Despite all being like, we're going home, but we don't know what we did last week.
Oh no.
It's really, really, really interesting.
Well, I'm excited to see it again. Like I said, it's been a very, very long time for me, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, this is a great episode. I don't, without any spoilers, Daniel, why did you pick this one for us to watch?
That's hard to do without any spoilers.
I can take my headphones off.
It's a little out of the box, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of the concepts that I think science fiction plays with like really hard nowadays. Like this episode kind of does that, but it does it before people were really doing it. And and it's not a very it's not like a traditional everybody, the whole crew on board sort of trying to solve a problem episode either. So that makes it interesting.
It's a really unique one. It's a great pick. If I was going to pick one episode, it probably would be this one. The only thing missing is maybe the context from the surrounding series, but I don't think you need a lot of that for this episode. You just need to know Voyager is trying to get home, which
that's the whole
I would hope everybody
show,
would know
right?
that. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think some of the best episodes focus on that simple concept of it gets away from the side quests and is just we want to go home now. Like we've been out here for
Fuck
years.
That nebula.
We don't have to go investigate that nebula. Let's just go back.
Yeah. There's a simulation at one point where a holographic Chakotay is like, we're done investigating nebulas and space phenomenon. We're going to get home. And I'm like, wait, he's meant to be the bad guy, but he's making a lot of sense.
Yeah. Sometimes they get prepared to commit some war crimes and things. They cross some moral lines, and whenever that comes up, which is really interesting.
That's interesting.
I wish they'd done more of that. I wish they'd pushed Janeway more and made her she made some fucked up decisions, but I would have loved to see more. Well, with that, I love that little mini introduction to Voyager. Let's head over to the holodeck, watch the episode, and we'll see you guys in 10 forward for a full debrief. 3 to beam out. Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab a drink from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode we just watched. Most important question first, and guest first. Daniel, what would you like from the replicator, sir?
I guess I'll have a Romulan ale.
Oh, nice. Technically illegal, but it is allowed on this ship because we are in, I think we're in that area of space where you have diplomatic immunity or it's international waters. That's where I park this Enterprise for the show. Deneé, what would you like?
Man, there was a moment in this episode where Captain Janeway was making a meal, and I wish I could remember what it was called, but
it was a vegetable biryani.
Yeah.
I've seen this episode too many times.
I'd like a vegetable biryani, please.
Nice. In a glass?
That
you
is.
Drink that?
You have told me on so many occasions that I can have whatever I want from the replicator. And then I was like, well, I thought it was supposed to be a drink. And you were like, it can be anything. And then I switched over to anything and you said it had to be a drink. And now I just think that you're being a dick every episode. And so I wanted biryani. I want it. I want it
amazing.
Plop out of the replicator. Yeah. You know, just kind of folds down onto the plate. That's what I want.
Well, it was Janeway's homemade vegetable biryani, so it's not even replicated, so you completely failed.
All right. Well, then I want Janeway's replicated biryani bits, and then I'll just try to make it myself.
We're gonna end up with bitch. I want a homemade biryani, bitch. Amazing. Well, I would like the tiniest amount of water or vodka that she poured for Chakotay. Like, she poured the tiniest amount. I've never noticed this. Like, he says something shocking and she stops and never continues filling up that glass. She's like, fuck you, dude. That's all the gin that you get with your dinner. And she pours like half a pint. So yes, that's what I would like.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Well, this week we are covering I think this is my favourite or second favourite episode of Star Trek Voyager, as suggested by Daniel. It's timeless. The surviving crew members of the USS Voyager, Chakotay and Harry Kim, have made their way back to the Alpha Quadrant, but at the terrible cost of the lives of their crewmates. 15 years later, they find Voyager in an attempt to change the past by sending a message through time.
That was good. That was really good.
Okay. I'm conflicted about which way to go first. I think we're going to do Deneé's initial thoughts and feelings, having never seen this and having not seen Voyager in, we're going to say decades? We're going to say 20 years.
I mean, I'm not that old, but yeah.
What are your thoughts about this episode?
I am, actually, I'm very old. I was born in the 1400s.
You can use plural for decades.
I am,
and it'd still just be 2.
I enjoyed this episode, but I found myself thinking about why we're okay with this episode a lot.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
I think it's the single ciniest episode of Star Trek we've watched to date.
I feel like if I was watching all of Voyager from the beginning to the end and just binging it or watching it when it came out or whatever, I feel like I would be super excited about this episode. Having been plopped into this episode after having not seen it in so long, I was like, wow, we're just okay with doing all kinds of really sketchy stuff, aren't we? But I
love it.
I think I enjoyed it for what I feel like it did for this series, because it moved their whole purpose forward a bit without answering the big questions of the show. Like, the show is all about going back home, and this sort of hits on that while not hitting on it at the same time. So it's it's getting to the point without getting to the point. So I feel like it did some interesting stuff. But if you were going to ask me to recap this episode, I think I would just say, in this episode we see what 7 of 9 looks like without anything on, and that's really not okay. What they did to 7 of 9 is not okay.
Where you were going.
Yeah, it took me a minute as well.
That was an incredible moment in the show, because Deneé had several layers of realization. The Doctor has been holding this thing for 4 scenes now, and towards the end of the episode, Deneé is like, oh, that's an eyeball. He's holding an eyeball. That's 7's eyeball. No. It was so good. Just the little dominoes falling of what was happening. It is great how casual he can have a conversation while holding his best friend's skull.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is there's some messed up stuff that this episode decides to do, in the name of undoing a mistake. But there is, I don't know, maybe we can get into it more, but I just feel like sometimes there's bravery in living with your mistake too. And this episode doesn't want to do that. It doesn't want to let there be a mistake.
Oh, hell no. Yeah.
Understandably so, because everybody is dead if that's the case. Yep. And obviously they're not ready to make that decision as a TV show. But yeah, dropping into it was really strange. I liked the acting in it. I thought that it kind of asked probably a lot more from characters we didn't get to see a lot of dimension from, but I don't know, because I haven't watched it in a long time. But it felt like
you picked up on that really well. Yeah,
put some people in the forefront that kind of needed to have their moment, and this was their really strong attempt at that moment.
Especially Harry, he gets this is probably the most we get to see him do. So now that we can get into spoilers, Daniel, why is this your favorite episode of Voyager? What do you love about it? Why did you think it would be a good way to get Deneé back into Voyager? That was not the mission statement at all. It was just, hey, what's your favorite episode?
I think the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking the episode was the Geordi LaForge cameo as captain of his own ship, which is
so
a whole different show that I would have liked to have seen. So
My goodness.
that was a big piece of it.
Star Trek Challenger with LeVar Burton would have been incredible.
Even like thinking about it, like there's a whole part of this episode where he fails his mission. Like
entirely.
We don't see that side of it, but like he really botches the job, and like all of reality has changed.
This is like this. If Picard was in charge, this wouldn't have happened. Like anybody wondered if you have a different captain of the Enterprise? No, you're absolutely right. He should have blown them up immediately.
So there's so much of that. There's like so much like pieces that like you don't see that. I think things that are alluded to that are really interesting, and I think like that, just like the scene where they have Voyager crashing is a cool VFX thing. So that that was so good, and like seeing it in the ice and like just where it starts is a really cool place of like where like what happened and like sort of how they're gonna get out of this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, to what Deneé was saying, is like there's definitely is like a weird like the tonality of the show. It stays very Voyager, like it's very Star Trek Voyager, but it definitely misses the mark in sort of like the conveying how anybody should feel about like any given moment. I think Harry is the only one that really like is different compared to his character in the.
He's a broken man now. Yeah,
that was interesting. That he was very desperate, and they didn't care if they died trying to get their 150 crew members saved. And that's an interesting idea, but LaForge he's like, yeah, but we're talking about 15 years of progress that we've made. How about all of the people that were born in the last 15 years that are no longer going to be in existence because you want to save 150 people? And I think that anyone who watches this episode and is like, this was totally justified, I might not agree with you on that. Like, let him die.
100%.
Like,
you just, because you don't know any better. Like so there are lives that are now going to be born that maybe weren't born, but it's no one person can make that judgment call about which timeline is correct, which one should be real. What if this leads to the Borg taking over the Alpha Quadrant because something happens in the Delta Quadrant with Voyager? Just anything can go wrong, but he is just driven by his guilt. And Harry was for me was the perfect choice for this person to be in the driving seat, because he was throughout all 7 seasons the most optimistic, the most positive, the most driven to get home, the one that just doesn't give up hope pretty much at all, and is almost obnoxiously optimistic about their chances of getting home. And for him to be the one that fucks it in the pooch so hard and kills everyone, and then it makes sense that he's then dedicated to the next 15 years, becomes like the Andrew Garfield Dark Spider-Man that we never get to see, and just breaks all of the rules, says, fuck this noise. This timeline cannot exist because of my ego. Like, if this timeline is an exact result of my failures, so therefore I'm going to delete it and start again. It's so vain with a mask of doing the right thing. It's like, no, this isn't about rescuing the ship. This is about making yourself feel better, Kim. I could write essays about this episode. It's so good.
The only place it doesn't stick the landing is that final scene. Like, if they address it right then, like right there, and like that conversation between him and Janeway, like maybe we should talk about what happened.
Right?
Harry, you should be in jail right now for the things future you would have done.
Like, I'm happy to be alive, but like
what did you do?
You went too far.
This is fucked up. Yeah, this is not good. I mean, we'll get to the sins, but like that message should not exist for so many reasons.
Yeah. That was a tricky one for sure.
So we'll head into some general happy thoughts about the episode before we get into what I could single-handedly do as a ReSINstance is Futile, a sinning section. I love this cold open. Hey, see what I did there? The cold, because it's in the ships buried in the ice. I love this cold open because you get the reveal of Voyager under the ice, and it's up there with like cause and effect where they blow up the Enterprise immediately, because like, okay, I know this isn't the end, but anything that does that, I think you get one of those a show. You get one of those, what the fuck, how are they going to get out of this really, really punchy cold opens a show, because if you do it too much, it doesn't work. And this is definitely Voyager's one for me. Do you remember your thoughts, Daniel, when you first saw the episode, or when you first saw that cold open and was like, oh, the ship?
Pretty sure that I would have just like been like immediately dialed in and like engaged in like what the story is going to be. Like, is that the end of the ship? Like is that just like the end of like how are they? I mean, I don't think now I know that wouldn't be the case, but I'm pretty sure when I was younger I would just be like, oh, like Voyager is no more, possibly. Like what?
Mm-hmm.
Like what does
it a duplicate?
Yeah.
Is it a parallel universe? Like, it just, for me, it just tells me that the next 45 minutes is going to be a good one. Like, there's some filler episodes where you're like, oh, this is about emotions, and Kim's going to get a girlfriend, and it turns out to be an alien that's from his past or whatever. But I know that this is going to be like a batshit good episode. Deneé, how quickly did you figure out it was Voyager? What were your instincts? Like, because the opening of the show is Chakotay and Kim. No, it's Chakotay and his girlfriend walking around a frozen Voyager. So when did you put the pieces together? What did you make you think you were in for?
Yeah, I put the pieces together when both you and Daniel were like, did she get it or did she not get it? And then I was like, oh, what did I miss?
That was me. I did that. I did that.
So there's a couple things that I was thinking when I was first starting to watch it. I'm so used to TNG because that's what we've been doing this season that I'm like, the show starts and I sort of like felt weird and I couldn't realize I was trying to figure out why, and then I realized it was because there was no Stardate so and so blah blah blah. We're on a mission to a quiet ice planet. Like there was no expositional entry, and it's just this quiet crunching sounds of snow, and so it drew me in a really interesting way because it was quiet and it was confusing and the music was kind of tense as well, so they're sort of setting this odd scene. And then because I just saw the ship, I was like, oh, that's a ship under the ice. And then I started to write down the numbers on the ship, and then the intro started, and I got really excited about the intro. I hadn't seen it in so long. And the intro is when I missed that the numbers matched up on the ship. I missed that part. But then whenever you guys were like, did she get it? I thought, oh, it's probably that ship. But until it was Janeway dead on the floor, I wasn't entirely sure, but I didn't recognize the bridge. So I wasn't feeling like it was an Enterprise situation. So yeah. It took me, I guess, maybe longer than some, but it was pretty quick.
It's so dark, that opening, because I think it's probably only just on this one that I noticed that Tom Paris is also on the floor,
and he's first body there. Yeah.
Oh, that's super spooky. Just this first dead body. It's like, hang on, that's where Tom Paris. Oh no, that's him. He's the icicle. And then Janeway's a little bit more obvious, but yeah, I really loved I can't imagine the amount of time it took to icicle the set of Voyager. Like,
oh yeah,
man, that's wild. Like, they must have brought in so many snow machines.
Yeah, some people did some work on that, and then to put it all back afterwards. Like, there was a lot of hours went into.
Oh man, it makes me wonder. Like, I haven't looked into the behind the scenes of it, but I wonder if they must have just done it on the set and just ruined all of the carpet. Like, because water isn't good for like sets and stuff. So to make the bridge that snowy and that icy, that's a huge undertaking for a few scenes in an episode, because we're only really on the icy Voyager for a couple of scenes. But just anything that redesigns or messes with the set, I love that stuff.
It's got I would imagine it's all synthetic something or another.
Like foam.
Yeah.
Some kind of.
They made a great job of making it look icy.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
When they were walking around on that ice planet, it was probably like 80 degrees or 90 degrees in that costume.
No. Oh yeah.
Just sweating.
Costume. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're just breathing in styrofoam. They're just breathing plastic into their lungs. Yeah.
Beautiful. Daniel, give us something else you loved about the episode.
Well, I think whenever the Doctor is a main character in any of the Voyager episodes, is usually really good. It's usually a really good episode. He just has a presence, and that is not. I mean, it's not as robotic as like Data, but like is still clearly a synthetic being. Like he like has that fine line where it's like, yeah, I have all these mannerisms of a normal human, but then he like, it's sort of like it's buried in the dialogue. Like what he's saying is just like like, stop feeling feelings right now, essentially.
Yeah. Move on. Like, stop it. It's like, yeah, textbook counseling from a computer.
Yeah.
I think the Doctor in general is a really interesting way to have that Data-like character, but without just retracing the same steps and doing the same thing over again. He was fascinating for the whole thing. What else did you love, Ambassador?
Oh, well, I kind of want to go back a bit too, because
yeah, do it.
There's a few things that I forgot that I loved about the intro to Voyager. Besides the music, there's this
so good.
The sound that it makes when they come up through the rings of Saturn or whatever the planet is. The rings, and it has a little pebbly kind of sound effect. I always really loved that sound effect for whatever reason. Yeah, like it's kind of just hitting the ship. It's like a little. It's just like a little.
Like, okay.
I don't know why.
It sounds like the orchestra could be doing it.
It's great.
Well. The arrangements for this era of Star Trek are so good.
Yeah. And visually, like when it goes through the nebula and it changes color as it hits the different parts of the cloud nebula thing, I always thought that was really beautiful too. And I had just forgotten how much I enjoyed the intro. Like this episode doesn't have a ton of joy in it. I mean, there is a scene that's filled with joy, and I'm gonna send the shit out of that in a minute. But but there was just like all of a sudden I was just kind of flooded back with like, oh yeah, this is kind of the vibe of this one, because this is a more serious show. They're like out all on their own, and it's always kind of felt really intense. Yeah. So, but there's still some beautiful things to enjoy about that. I just thought, that was another thing I liked is the intro.
That sweeping music is so good. It's such an interestingly, like it's melancholy, but also still upbeat in its own way. I love the theme tune to Voyager. I think it's great. Something interesting about this episode, you're going to like this, Deneé. It is technically set in 2400, which is the same year that Picard, the new series, is set.
Oh, wow.
How strange does that feel?
Well,
have you seen Picard as well, Daniel?
Yeah, I have not seen the most recent episode. The most recent season.
Okay,
season
so
2.
go with me here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
This episode undoes all of Picard because it erased the timeline.
No, because Picard happens in the new timeline that Harry's created. So we might be we might in Harry's timeline, we may have in the original timeline, we may still have Romulus. There's no android ban. There's no like shenanigans with the Borg and whatnot.
So this show does a very sinful thing at the end, which I'm sure all of us are going to sin, which is the explanation of any of it, of any of the time the time traveliness of it all. But I think this episode wants us to believe that everything that this timeline, the future that doesn't have any of the Voyager crew, that it just dissolves and just gets reabsorbed back into the great nebulous of time. That's the idea I think that they want us to take. But
yeah, whereas in reality, that timeline should continue just with a dead Harry and a dead Chakotay and a Challenger that realizes, oh, we didn't need to chase after them. That doesn't matter. In theory, the only way it makes sense is if you have branching timelines. Like the universe where he killed everybody still happens. He's just created a new one where it didn't happen.
Okay. Yeah.
That's kind of like the more modern approach to
but this one doesn't go that way.
No.
Have they isn't like not until Discovery do they ever like address like multiverse stuff in Star Trek? Right?
That's the first time. There's in fact season 4 of Discovery that just happened was the first one to acknowledge that the Kelvin universe exists in the wider universe and that it's an offshoot of the Prime timeline.
I'm watching that right now and I have not got to that part, so that's interesting.
Oh, I am so sorry.
I'm not worried about it.
Great job, Ian.
It's almost it's a weird thing to mention because it has nothing to do with the overarching story. It's a scene that they put in there because they wanted to do it. Like it doesn't really have a lot of connecting. I think it's quite early in season 4. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess you could call like the mirror universe stuff is kind of their first foray into like the multiverse things and like alternate timelines and whatnot. So Yeah, Mirror Mirror. That's a good way to do it. Those episodes of the evil universes, and they were doing that back in the 60s.
Yeah. But as Janeway says, don't think about it too much.
Right.
I mean, that's
when we get
through
through
it too much. Said the writer to the audience.
Yep.
Love it. There was something else I was going to say. Right, sorry. Linked to the Picard thing. The comm badges are the same ones that are used in Picard as well.
Oh, truly?
All they did was strip they've trimmed the top a little bit, but the rest of it is exactly the same comm badge that they use in Picard.
That's
it's such
so
a
clever.
cool little design thing. The comm badges survived Harry's shenanigans.
They did somehow, some way that the future still exists, or the future of this show's our future.
The guy that designed that comm badge still exists.
He made it somehow.
Yeah, he made it through all the shenanigans.
I don't know if this happens in what's it called in Picard yet, but Geordi hasn't showed up in the most recent. Okay, it was like, what if he shows up and he's just like, something weird happened?
I get a weird feeling I should be on the Challenger.
Guys,
just for some reason I'm not.
Is that the best part of this episode? That was seeing Geordi LaForge in the captain's chair with his
Sexy
eyes all. I mean, he was just like the fucking best. That was
he's got
best.
his little captain's lean.
Yes.
Anyone else notice?
Yeah,
it's so good. He's just been like modeling himself off of Riker this whole time.
The way that he communicates during that entire scene, it's like this man has power, authority, confidence, and like it was just unquestioned, unparalleled. Like, y'all fucked up, and he's gonna take you down. And then he like attacks them and everything. He's not fucking around. It was really cool to watch. I really enjoyed that.
And he still has the empathy because he's like, hey, if I was in your shoes, I'd be doing the same thing, but I've got to stop you.
He had tact.
He's so chill. He's exactly how I would think Captain LaForge would be. So good. But I have sins about all of the Challenger stuff, but later. But yeah, LeVar also directed this episode as well, which is really, really, really fun. Really
so
really
talented.
Fun. He really is. Like I am not unconvinced. What's the word? I'm convinced that he pulled that performance out of Garrett Wang, Harry Kim. Like just the rage. Like there is some great directing going on there, I feel, where it's just this dark Harry Kim that we haven't seen before, who does some of the darkest shit we've seen. It's a great performance.
Yeah.
Did you have any like general questions, Deneé, that you think you need for like added context? Were there any relationship beats or kind of story beats that you thought, I'm missing something here, I don't get it?
There was a couple things that I was just like, what's that mean? And there's still some stuff that I enjoyed about the episode too. So I guess I'll do like a twofer. I really enjoyed the Talaxian fur fly. Let's just say that we don't often have a moment for taxidermy within a show, but that was really great. And it shows Neelix's oddness.
What else was Neelix going to do?
Right.
in the episode. Like
Neelix needs to do something unexpected and quirky. Let's give him a dead creature that he's been holding on to for God knows how long. And we're gonna give it for good luck.
At least 4 years.
I'm pretty sure he's the reason that the interstellar compulsion quantum slipstream drive doesn't work.
Nice.
Pretty sure.
That's all his fault. Yeah.
It's all his fault. He literally is like, they're all celebrating like this is going to be awesome. And he's like, guys, do I have the perfect totem for you? Let me show you this really oversized fly bee mashup monstrosity that has been somehow preserved perfectly. And then and then they go and they hang it up somewhere and then the whole thing falls apart. So
you know how the episode should have ended is
like a slow zoom on the fly.
Harry should have turned to Janeway and said, but everything I did worked in this simulation. I don't know why it didn't work in reality. And then it just cuts to engineering, slow zoom on the fly. That's how the episode ends.
100%. That's exactly it. Like what should work is that future Harry sends back the coordinates for where the fly is on the ship back to past Harry.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is going on here? And it's like emitting some sort of strange decomposing thing. I don't know. Anyway.
That would absolutely be on brand. There is an episode of Voyager where like Neelix poisons everybody. And there's some biological elements on the ship and he poisons them as well because he purchased a really weird cheese that grew a fungus. And he's like, I nearly destroyed the ship. So it's 100% on brand for Neelix's character. Yeah. That would absolutely happen.
One of my questions was, I think I wrote down 2 questions this episode. But the first one was when Harry and Chakotay are on the frozen ship, the very beginning, they're like kind of down in there, like walking around, figuring it all out or whatever. Retrieving 7 of 9 and the Doctor. I think like Chakotay says something like, keep your comm badge open. Does that mean that whatever is said is just transmitted? There's no like booping? There's no booping?
Yeah, comlink is open the entire time. Yeah.
How many times has that resulted in something interesting happening in Star Trek history? Like how many times has someone comm badge just been on inadvertently?
Excuse me, sir, I can hear you pooping.
Right. Yes.
To my knowledge, I'm usually pretty good at thinking of examples. I can't think of one.
Great idea for a show.
Sir, you left that open. I heard all of that conversation.
So it just seems strange to me because we already have a system that's always listening anyway, because like the computer's always there to sort of do whatever you need it to do. So it's Googling, Alexaing, doing the listening in thing. But then you also keep your comm badge open the whole time. I don't know. I guess there's times for it. But it just seems like...
I think in like an emergency.
It's like an energy drain situation. What kind of an emergency? Because it's... And then it's there. So I just don't understand why keeping it open is important.
What if you like get kidnapped and you can't make any movements?
What if you touch something and your hand freezes to a wall because...
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you have to like try and chin the comm badge. You just look... Yeah, it's interesting.
That's actually probably part of their training for comm badges is like how... You're like in your class, like, okay, well, what happens if I can't use my hands? Like, well, that's why we keep it up on the shoulder so that you can boop it with your chin.
Exactly. You can do it. Just lick your comm badge. You do not want to lick a comm badge. You really, really don't.
Okay, so I always thought that you'd put it like on your shoulder, but turns out that more, and in addition to it being on like your shoulder area, is it has to, regulations would say, be within chin booping distance as well.
I think so, yeah. Because the general thing is that it's just above the left nipple, but I think it would have to be
too far down,
a lot higher up.
Especially for a woman who's been breastfeeding. That nipple just sinks so much further down. That's a terrible
That's a bad
thing.
Metric.
It needs to be collarbone down, like not at all based on nipple. Just
no, it's fair. That's fair. They move around. Absolutely.
Chin. It's got to be the chin because you have to be able to boop it.
Yeah. Or it's just built into your ear. It's just like, or it's on your fingertip. You just like.
Why are we comm badging at all? This is the future.
Yeah. This is the future. This is 400 years in the future. Why do we still need cell phones? It's bizarre.
And everyone always hears. And like can everyone hear when like you're having a comm badge conversation, or is it like auditorily only like
how
available to the person? Like
this is a great question.
It comes out of there's a speaker on the comm badge that it comes out of, and then unless you're on the ship, and then it comes out of the comm badge or the speakers, depending on what's needed. The computer always knows exactly what's needed by the person sending the message.
That's insane to me. But at the same time, can I tell you something I learned? This is why it took so long for us to start our live show, is because I'm just telling so many stories today.
Oh, it's the best.
So my friend and I recently went to Mexico. She went to go visit like an Aztec ruins where they had an old, like, I'll call it a basketball court. It was like a game that involved a basket and a ball. And they had like all this documentation about, I guess, what that would have looked like. So they were telling the people who went to this Aztec ruins how this game worked. And there was it's kind of set down into the ground, and the people who are observing are like up pretty high. And down the court are these big circular like plates almost made out of rock. And so the judge could say something and it would go and hit the rock and be amplified for the referees that were out there. So what I'm telling you is that surely there's a way in the future for a comm badge to like aim audio specifically for the people and not have it be like speakerfied around everyone. If the Aztecs a long time ago could have someone standing at the end of a court and just talk regularly and have somebody on the other side hear it, certainly Star Trek would be able to comm badge it directly to an ear. I'm just saying. This is what I think.
100%.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I'm sure they should have the technology. But it does make me laugh that the Chakotay's girlfriend is like, oh, this looks a bit old-fashioned. I was like, It's 15 years. It's not that. It's not that. The Challenger is older than Voyager. Just get over that stuff.
Oh, I have a big beef with Star Trek and like the way that like when people reference time, like Tom Paris says in this episode, I think we built an Edsel, and like it's a car like I forget what time period, but I mean it's like it's an old car that was like a piece of crap, or I believe it was a bad car, but like they are so many years in the future that like there has got to be so many other cultural references that would come to mind before an Edsel, because like that wouldn't be the first thing that came to mind. Like if one of us were thinking about it, like a bad car or like something to reference.
I had no idea what an Edsel was.
So it's like like the amount of knowledge to his first mind goes hundreds of years into the past.
Yeah. Well, this show does it too, and I think it's a sin too. I know we're not like to the sin section yet, but it does it too with like the Bonnie and Clyde reference that the Doctor makes. It's like, has there been no other person, no other duo in all this time?
Timeless, like the episode.
And I get it. Some of those things are just, they end up becoming timeless references, but yeah.
I will, because we will get attacked. Well, not attacked, but somebody will mention it. Tom is a automotive aficionado. He does actually, in his spare time, he does go into the holodeck and he rebuilds cars from the 50s and 60s. He is a bit of a grease monkey. That is kind of part of his character. So of all of the people on the ship, I'm glad it was him that makes the reference, but they do this all the time. There are still better things they could have referred to that we wouldn't know about because they haven't happened for us yet, that he should be talking about. Yeah. He should have called it like an Ensign Kim or something. I think we've built an Ensign Kim. And Kim's just like, dude, I'm standing right here. What do you mean? Right, before we move into the sins, which I know we're all desperate to do, Daniel, any final thoughts on just why you love this episode?
I don't think I have anything that's not like a sin of sorts. So I guess I'll just...
Can I ask a question then? Is that okay? Maybe you know how this works, Daniel. Do you know that moment when like they're testing this? They're testing the interstellar compulsion quantum slipstream drive. I like saying that.
Nice.
And, and they go into the holodeck to test it, but then they don't go into the holodeck to test the shuttle.
Save it for the sins.
I'm just my question is, could they have, or was that something I missed? Like, is it because they were under a time crunch? Like, could they have done that?
I believe he does talk about the crystals deteriorating, so there's a time element to it. Whether or not they had
the
enough
Benamite
time.
crystals, by the way, they're the Benamite crystals, just so you know.
So you're probably not wrong, but probably is a way to explain it away.
Okay.
I still don't think we're talking about they're going to expire this afternoon. If they had time to run 23 simulations of Tom's whatever his simulation was, they had time to run 1 or 2 with the shuttle before fucking it up. Huge plot hole. I've just got a couple of things. I love Kim's explosion at the end when he's just like, he's tapping away and just that like explosive yes that he just comes out of him that synchronizes with the warp core explosion. I don't know if they like amplified his voice, but that echoes through time. I love that moment so much. And this is also the moment where a younger version of Ian discovered what joined at the hip was actually referring to, because Kim says that they're having sex, and then the next line is yeah they're joined at the hip, and just those 2 lines back to back made younger Ian realize, oh, that's what that means. I thought joined at the hip just meant they're always holding hands, they're always side by side.
It does.
But no, joined at the hip.
I mean, it does mean both. You can do both. It doesn't always mean a sexual reference. But that was a really funny scene when he's like, they're fucking.
Yeah, they're fucking. It's so not Harry Kim, but I'm like, oh damn, you've grown up.
And what's her name doesn't even react to it. Like
no.
she like
just like, yeah, I tapped that.
But they could have like high-fived or something afterwards.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe?
even
Or maybe it's because he's like a medical doctor. He's like, oh, that makes sense, you know. Like, I don't know. It was interesting.
Suddenly got Bro Kim and Bro Chakotay. Right, okay. With that, let's head over to engineering for ReSINstance is futile and send some time travel, people.
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
Welcome to Engineering. This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains, remind ourselves that no TV show is without sin, even our beloved Star Trek. Daniel, go first as our guest. Give us one of your biggest sins, whatever bugs you about this episode.
One of the biggest ones for me is just how like things just like stop working, and they're just like, we can't, like what do they say, like the emergency system's offline. It just stops working. It's like, and because it's not part of the plot or it's used as a device, we're not going to keep trying to address that problem. There was another one that was like towards the end. There was another one where I can't shut down the drive.
Yeah.
Tom Paris, I can't shut down the drive. That apparently never happened in a simulation. He just can't shut it down.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
And it just shouldn't happen. Like, so much should have to go wrong. There should always be a turn this shit off button or like an eject it. And nobody tries to get to the escape pods. No one tries to get off that ship. It's just, well, I guess this is my icy doom. If only we had transporters or something. Like, it's insane that there isn't, like, there should be a program on the ship that beams everyone into escape pods simultaneously, ejects them. That's your evacuation from the ship, or at least does it to a portion of the crew. You have 5 or 6 transporter rooms that are capable of beaming 8 people at once. Couple seconds, I guarantee it's faster than running to an escape pod.
Yeah, that does seem to be silly.
That brings me to another sin, is we're reading a planet. Like, in the middle of space, there's like, and it's not that far.
It's like, yeah, and then it just scans over and it's like, oh, the one out the window? Oh, that huge thing?
It's insane. Like, space is big. Space is really, really big. And you might be thinking, it's kind of unlucky that we're landing on this planet. You have no idea how unlucky it is.
And somehow that was a better choice. Like, you would think that not hitting a planet would have been better, but for some reason...
a relief, apparently. Thank God there's this ice cube we can run into. Anyone read the Titanic? Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Deneé, your turn.
Okay, well, I really like that moment when Chakotay and his girlfriend, which, by the way, I found to be an interesting kind of thing to have, like, on screen. They didn't give it too much screen time. They didn't give it too little. I thought they did a really good job of just like, let's put in the idea of a new relationship that's going to have some loss by the success of going back in time, or in this case, just being blown up and dying. So they're like on a suicide mission essentially. And at one point they decide to go back down to the ship for reasons. Can't remember exactly why, but they go down to the ship and they're hanging out and she's like, don't suppose we have time for a tour? And he's like, my quarters are messy. I'm like, is this the time to be thinking about boinking? Is like,
wisecracking?
This isn't the time for that. Like, yeah, sure, you want to go explore when you like, that just seems really out of place.
And there's so many dead bodies on that ship.
There's just
that's like a weird. That's a weird place to be comfortable with that.
Like Janeway's corpse is just over there.
Tom Paris is on the ground, like surrounded by 140 of your dead friends. Hey, what the fuck?
Your buddy is on the other ship, and the doctor is holding the brain and the eyeball of your other buddy. So, yeah, let's go fuck. Why not?
I mean, I nearly said exactly the same moment where she just says, are you okay? As he sat on the bridge of his dead ship surrounded by his dead friends. Like, no, I am not okay. I do love that the doctor is like, well, thanks for coming to rescue me, guys. I really appreciate it. And they're just like, nope. We didn't come to rescue you. We need your expertise. Sorry, doctor. I'll just go back in the ice then.
Yeah, that was a little bit ill-timed.
Man, I have so many sins for this, but I think it's going to be, oh man, it's the war crimes. So this episode is directly linked to the war crimes episode that Jonathan has mentioned a few times, which is Hope and Fear. So in that episode, the crew come across a ship from Starfleet called the Dauntless, and it has like a message in it, and it has this slipstream drive, which is going to get them home really, really quick. But it's all been staged by an alien whose species was wiped out by Janeway when she made a deal with the Borg. And he basically is going to fly them into Borg space so that they can get assimilated as well. But they study the ship for long enough that they extract the slipstream technology from it, which is a real thing, and then install it into Voyager, which is why they have the slipstream drive now. So they're all celebrating and going, yay! When really the subtext is, remember that species we wiped out? We also have their technology, and that's going to get us home. The origin of the slipstream drive is so dark, and it is not addressed. This is the last remnant of a genocide that Janeway committed that is allowing her to get home. The crew deserves to die. It should have killed them.
Holy shit!
It's so fucking dark.
Like, my sin of that scene is, like, do you know how hard it is to get glitter out of anything? Why are we...
Right? Especially
why are we right by the warp core just, like, slamming open champagne bottles and flinging up... That was my sin for the moment, but holy shit! Genocide. Good God.
It is profiting off of the Nazis. It is all of the technology that came about, like, after World War II. Like, oh, it's fine. They work for us now. Janeway is almost as bad. It's almost funny when you just roll back and think, wait, why does a slipstream sound familiar? Oh yeah, that's why.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So funny. Mm-hmm. I will say that it is all of the ice is convenient. Like convenient ice, a convenient Borg on the crew, frozen in ice that can travel through time and is preserved. Like if Voyager lands on any other planet, this doesn't work. Everyone's decomposed. Everyone's dead. There is so many layers of convenience that allow this plan to pull off. It would have the what's-its sent out of it completely. Daniel, any other sins?
Oh, there's the whole like using one ship, a smaller following a smaller ship that has to transmit something back to the bigger ship. I didn't realize that had been how many times that had been done in Star Trek until I watched this episode again, because I had just recently after was it either this week or last week, I watched an episode of TNG where Picard does the same thing. He's like in a shuttle and there's like dark matter or something, and he's like he has to send them like coordinates so they can move the ship like in between these like big like dark matter clouds or something like that. And then I'm pretty sure that there was something in Discovery that was very similar as well that I saw an episode a few months ago, but I don't remember what it was. So it's I don't know if they. A lot. It's definitely a cliche by now within the Star Trek canon.
You know what's gonna solve this problem? This tiny little shuttle.
You know, it's like they're
human at the helm.
It's like they're ski. It's like Voyager is skiing behind a shuttle in a way, and it's like that doesn't seem like it makes any sense to me. But maybe it's because I'm thinking on like Earth terms where skiing happens on water.
Fourth-dimensionally.
But it's like, oh yeah, let's put this massive ship behind the teeny tiny ship. Like the bigger sin for me in that moment too is how confident Kim is that is it Kim? Wait, Harry.
Henson. Yeah.
Harry. Yeah. I don't remember these people. I'm sorry. How
it's
Harry's
having
like,
two first names as your last name is
I got this. I'm gonna do this. It's great. And then he gets in there and he's just like derp. Derp. He's so...
The sweat off of his brow is how
I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, well, how have you not been mentally preparing for this moment?
Like you've been promoted for a job that you're just not qualified to do.
You look out the back and this massive ship is skiing behind you, just like right on your ass, and you're just like, you know what, guys, I changed my mind. just say shut it down. You know, like why did it have to be pushing to failure? But that again for me, maybe that's the biggest sin for me, is just that not pushing the show to accepting the fact that it didn't work. How crazy would that ending be? That'd be fucking cool.
You gotta recast everyone in midway through
the end
season
of the series.
4.
That's it.
It's done.
It just ends right there.
That would have been horrible. Voyager would have gone down as the worst Star Trek in history. If they died, it would have been, man, I don't even know if Star Trek survives. I kind of want to see it, but it's insane. It's insane.
This on that point, like I didn't even think about this, but it's very much. Whoever wrote that first they ripped off Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They ripped off Santa Claus. Like that's
right.
It's guiding the sleigh. Like that's the whole. That's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing.
It's like if that didn't work.
Harry with your nose.
And Santa and all the other reindeer were killed.
And that, children, is why we don't have presents anymore.
Yeah, that's why Star Trek never did a Christmas special, because Santa and the reindeer would have died. I did have conveniently decomposing bentonite crystals are conveniently decomposing because, of course, we need a time pressure on it. Because Chakotay's right. You hand that pad to any Starfleet engineer and they're like, no, y'all are insane. Like, don't do this. You have one ship. You are in so much trouble if this goes wrong. They have a 70-year journey ahead of them.
Not anymore. 60.
But take 5 years to research it. Take 10 years to research it. Like, do some due diligence. But no, bentonite crystals. I don't know. And so Harry says it'll take months to make more. Cool.
Make more. Start doing months. It now. Yeah.
Like, months compared to years, compared to blowing up the ship. Like, I know he's eager to get home, but yeah,
that's a failure on part of Janeway that is not addressed in the episode either. Is that she totally let him do this?
Yeah, that was her decision. It wasn't.
Give me the flight plan, and she okays it. I was like, okay, Captain, what makes you an expert on quantum tunneling? Like, what? Run it through the computer. Like, why are you getting the final say on this?
I think this episode really pushes in on when the writers sit down, and I can see them saying, we want our audience to feel like there's progress towards getting home. We want them to see us using this technology that we have instead of avoiding it. Let's use it. But we're not ready to end the series yet, so it can't be successful. But wasn't there a way to make it be like closer to successful? 10 years is still, I guess, a little bit better. But was there a way to do it where it didn't ask us to consider, just an entire timeline being either created and then dissolved, or existing without, or whatever, like whatever happened there that they didn't explain at all? Because as Daniel said earlier, like Janeway is just like, we're not going to think about that, guys.
It's that.
Wait, she said
that one episode memory thing.
My advice for attempting to explain temporal paradoxes or something is don't even try. And then it's like, but you just made this episode. Like you just made us try, and now you're saying, but don't think about it too much. And I feel like I don't know.
Look to camera.
What would be really interesting is to like pan away from this timeline and then figure out how to pan back into a different timeline, like or have the note sent back to even before. Like, why not try to just go back and doop and send a different message besides just like dissolve the slipstream entirely? I don't know.
Because he has such a small amount of time. If he sends the message too far back, they're going to question it. They're going to be like, we can't confirm that this came from the future. We're going to ignore it, and we're just going to go home.
They sure did, because he coded his own shit right in there. He's like, by the way, this is from me. This is the date, and here's a personal message from me. Hi, me. I fucked up.
Yeah, it's Star Trek though, because they would have mulled over that message for years or months, right. No, I'm agreeing completely with you, Deneé. Like, I don't think that like them just like writing it off is like a good excuse, because like if they're this desperate to take this chance, like if you send it to them a year ahead of time, like they're going to be like try to authenticate that, like they're going to run maybe instead of 23 simulations, probably thousands. Like they're going to work the problem still, and they're not going to just like think of all the other, like even the other episode you're referring to where they basically get duped by this alien into thinking
hope and fear.
Yeah. Like if they're willing to take those chances, like they're definitely going to take a chance on this message that's giving them pertinent information. Like, so like I had that written down too, when he's just like, he said, just the right moment. It has to be just the right moment. It's like, no, the doctor's still right. Like you
don't need 4 minutes. How about 4 days? Or
I
like send this to them before they even get to the Delta Quadrant.
Oh my goodness! Stop them from
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is like, when do you go back to fix the problem? Like, if Henry doesn't care at all and he just wants to undo a problem, like, why not undo the problem of ever going into Starfleet in the first place?
It's got to be when 7 of 9 is on board. That.
Okay.
7 joins them midway through the mission.
So what if he didn't? What if he sends it to the Borg? Like, that'd be weird.
There you go.
I don't even know. Don't even know what would happen.
The Borg just turn up on Earth. Oh, fuck. So
yeah.
I agree with Harry's logic of it's got to be in the moment so that they don't have time to think about it. It's just, okay, course correction, let's go. However, I do agree with you guys because he's completely, and the show is completely misunderstanding the butterfly effect, which is what we're talking about here, is that an act in the past will change the future. All he has to, that first course correction he makes creates a new timeline because Voyager jumps out at a different point. They jump out later than they should have done by seconds.
Right.
And even by seconds, it doesn't matter. He just has to send a message or something that makes them pause to think and even delay by 1 day. Yeah. And that creates a new timeline.
Yeah.
Like, he shouldn't have had a second chance to send that message back.
He created 2 new ones, essentially. There's just like this little branch kind of happening.
Yeah.
I actually thought that the first time, I thought there was going to be like a little bit of a writer's twist going on. So the very first time he sends it back, Chakotay and he stay in their shuttle and they get kicked out. They're going down, so they're going to end up back home. And then Janeway and the crew are headed towards the planet, and they start to crash. And it cuts to commercial, and I'm just thinking, oh, I wonder if the information he sent was actually how to survive on this planet. So that way, that way they're like they change their course correction so that the crash didn't crash them as hard or something. Like, 'cause that's what I thought was going to happen. So that right. So then they get back to now time, and the now time starts to go to try to figure out how to get them out of, because now 2 of the people made it back, and I thought that maybe those 2 people weren't going to be on the show as much anymore, and maybe the show would split and have some in like, you know, working with the Starfleet, and then some would be still trying to get back home, kind of a situation. That's what I thought was going to happen, but that is not what happened at all.
No, that is not what happened. So, I mean, it does come back to this one episode memory thing of today. We can't help but think about serialized stuff, and even Lower Decks. And Strange New Worlds, it has undercurring themes. I don't think you make a TV show nowadays that doesn't remember its own episodes. Voyager, even though it had one single mission, it didn't refer back to a lot of its own stuff. So this timeless thing is never mentioned again. The fact that time travel is a thing, Harry Kim killed everyone. Next week, it's la la la, let's go see what's happening with Tuvok in his quarters because he's had a dream. Like, it still suffered from, we're allowed to do anything we want in this 45 minutes to some degree, because as long as we hit the reset button by the end of the episode, everything's fine for next week. And we almost don't worry about people watching it and reanalyzing it in 2023. But nowadays, you always have to think of the wider implications.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have an episode like this unless you refer back to it and say, wow, the timeline's pretty fucked now, isn't it?
I think there might have been a fear with like serialized storytelling, just like because we all, like, they weren't as accessible, so it's like you could miss a week or 2 weeks, and it's like you weren't going to get that episode until like you bought it on like the DVD or yeah, I think it was DVDs then. So you probably could have lost people just like in that in that world where people are like, what is even going on in this episode?
They just don't watch the show. They just don't watch the show again.
No, you're right. We can do different things with our storytelling now because of how people access the media. And that's part of what's fun about watching the shows that were created in a different time when entertainment was presented completely different. You know, now someone can sit there for a weekend and binge your entire series.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And so you can take some risks because someone doesn't, and then it becomes a thing that you talk about, like, wait until you get to episode 5 and then everything changes. You don't start with episode 5 because it's airing live on TV, unless you're watching YouTube TV.
And they just do that to you.
Yeah. Which you can still watch live TV, and it is a very interesting experience to do so. It's like a little flashback reminder of how things used to be. But that is important to take into mind whenever we're, you know, looking at these kinds of things, because we do have like more of a modern storytelling desire now. Like, I want to dig deeper into some stuff, like kill. But I'm not tied to these people either. I'm like, kill them all. I don't care,
kill
you know. But I'm
new timeline. I like, but that's the great thing about Star Trek is that it makes you want to explore more. Like, there's 45 minutes is not long enough to do this concept justice. Somebody in the chat earlier said this could have been like a 3-part like episode series. I was like, 100%. It could have easily been a 2-parter. It would have been. I love it. Time travel. I love it. My last big sin, other than, hey, how do we show that the slipstream drive is fancy? We give it yellow and green lights for some reason. My big sin was Captain Geordi LaForge, because the man's an engineer. Like, he wasn't on the command path. Like,
you never know. You don't know what happened.
It is possible that he changed
totally
careers.
Possible.
But
don't you fucking question Geordi LaForge, the captain.
I'm just saying, we've seen him in the command role occasionally, but his desire has always been engineering. That's been his passion.
Until, something happened 15 years ago,
Just saying. It's interesting. It's also odd that we have a 26-year-old ship chasing down the Delta Flyer when Chakotay's girlfriend is like, oh man, this 15-year-old ship is really out of fact. The Galaxy-class ship is 26 years old at this point.
Yeah, but like you said, he's an engineer, so he gets the shit stuff to prove himself. God damn it.
Why are they only sending one ship? If this is changing the entire fucking timeline,
because he's so badass, he doesn't need any help.
God damn it. The Challenger should not be doing this mission, is what I'm saying. Okay, right, here we go. Why isn't Geordi on the bridge? Geordi's like in some fucking office somewhere, because you don't see the bridge. You just see him in a chair in his office.
I have the answer.
They couldn't get onto the set of the Enterprise, that's why.
It's a production budget.
He had just gone to the bathroom, He had to answer quickly. He just had a quick poo, and he just jumped into the closest chair that looked professional, that was not his poo seat. And that's sometimes how it goes.
Amazing. It's bullshit. It's nonsense. Right. Daniel, any more sins before we wrap this up and delete this timeline forever?
I'm just saying Harry's a bit of a dick in this show.
Right?
He's a bit of a dick to everyone.
Yeah. He's a dick to an entire timeline.
Yeah. He is working through some trauma.
Apart from the very monotone, they're having sex that he says is also when the doctor's like, Ensign, he's like, I go by Harry now. Like, he's just being an asshole so hard for like no reason.
It's so funny. I want to introduce my friends like that at some point. Just like, they're having sex. Thank you.
He is. He's kind of one of those characters though, but I think it was kind of interesting. He must be so jarring from his normal character. I get the impression that they were just trying to like really push him into a different like direction. But that's just an assumption that I'm making based on, what I saw, that they took someone who's usually maybe like more calm and kind, and then they just turned him into a complete asshole.
Yeah,
so it must be really jarring.
Dealing with a lot of things, like his personality has shifted.
I like how at that one point where he was kind of like raging on his therapist, he's like, I know, survival, blah, blah, blah.
Survivor guilt, bullshit. Therapy sucks. Unbelievable.
I'm killing everyone in the timeline to deal with my own fucking issues. Nobody asked me any questions. Chakotay's in. His girl that he's banging is in. She's willing to die. Because they're just so in love, and this is what we're doing. And the doctor's like, okie dokie.
Okay, let's go. I do actually have one more sin now that we've mentioned the doctor. Should he be helping them? Because he's a computer. He's a program. Yes, he's complicated. But at his base programming, shouldn't it be do no harm? Like, he's a doctor.
Technically, like, 7 of 9 was dead when he does all the harm to her. Technically, it was just an autopsy at that point. So he didn't do harm to her.
The timeline. He's killing everyone in that timeline.
Everyone.
Like, I just felt like the Starfleet programming in him should be like, error, do not compute, must not help him. There's got to be something in there that's just like, let's make sure he's never convinced into doing this. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, but he has to be there, because if he's not there, then the doohickey can't have the extra battery thingamajigger that it needs.
All of that. That's correct. Exactly.
To transmit the whatchamacallit.
I don't know why they had to steal the Delta Flyer other than it's a ship that we know. Because the Delta Flyer is also 15 years old. To
get to the Voyager ship, they had to steal a ship. Maybe they just had to steal the easiest one that they could get to.
That's what I mean. Why is that the easiest ship to steal? It's fucking old at this point. It should be in a museum. Any warp-capable ship would have got them there. I don't know how the Delta Flyer was.
You think 15 years in a ship would be in a museum?
So the original Enterprise, they mothball after 20 years because it's too old.
Wow.
That's the only scope that I have.
God, my Jeep is so old in my garage right now. I'm like, man, I'm driving that thing that's like it's like a 20-year-old vehicle and it's still puttering along. Like here they are, just like, let's just destroy ships that have been out for a decade.
In Connecticut, you get a classic car plate after I think 20 years or something like that.
Oh,
so
that's cool. For humans, we're just called geriatric.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right. Well, that is everything, I think, unless anyone has any final thoughts.
No, I think that's it for me.
Nope.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Daniel. We'll definitely have to have you on again. You picked a great episode.
This is a great
discussions.
episode.
It's so fun for all of its fucked upitude. Yeah. Anywhere you want to point people to come and chat and talk about timelines and shit?
No, I don't have any place right now.
Here's his address. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Write me a letter.
Send it to our CinemaSins P.O. box in Nashville. It'll eventually get its way to Daniel.
It must only be parchment and using a quill. Otherwise, it will not be read.
Wow.
And it must be a message from 15 years from now saying, well done, you avoided a disaster.
I genuinely feel like somebody would take you up on that. And so just for funsies, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the P.O. box. If you want to write a quilled message to Daniel, you can send that via mail. That involves using like a little stamp and such.
Mailbox.
So a mailbox. P.O. Box 92466. That's Nashville, Tennessee 37209. You can just address it to CinemaSins, care of Daniel, and it will get to him.
Nice.
Parchment, quill. That's all.
That's it.
Just keep that in mind.
If that's all that's sent, it's just empty. It's invisible ink. It has to be an invisible ink as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh shit! No, you didn't say that. It's Daniel's standards.
Daniel? Peer pressure.
Invisible ink might be too much. Like, is it going to be like National Treasure where I got to like get like lemon juice and like heat it up in the oven?
Exactly. Yeah. Just a bunch of squares. Amazing. Right, well, with that, next week it'll be the same time, same place in theory, around about. If you want to join us live on Twitch, on the CinemaSins Live Twitch channel, and on YouTube Live as well. Be roughly 12:30 Central. And we are going to be watching next week what I promised we would be watching 2 weeks ago, The Measure of a Man. So we're getting very, very, very close to Picard Season 3. So we're going to carry on with some data thoughts and watch this incredible episode that, I think it's gonna get Deneé in all of the feels. But until next week, I'm going home, and I don't care if all it takes is killing everyone I care about.
We're talking to yesterday from me, and
this timeline only exists because I made a mistake 15 years ago.
Oh no! Live long and Podsper.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
It's time to start the music. It's time there's lights and shit. It's time to get on the starship. It's time to bother the captain. It's time to do the thing. Most sensational, observational, monkey spational, da 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 da. This is my new hub that I got, so I can plug a whole bunch of shit into this and not be without ports any longer.
Yeah, beautiful.
Look how big and bulky and chunky and wonky it is.
I love it. There's so much in there.
So
I love that.
I'm gonna plug it in later on today and see how it goes. I'm not gonna do it during the show. I promise.
Don't mess anything up.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be tempted to do that.
You are.
Are you in engineering on this ship?
The short answer is no.
We'll just say that Deneé's in the Jeffries tube for the rest of the episode.
100%. Yes.
She got
lost. I'm like just ripping stuff out.
Quit it. Stop touching the cables.
Can I tell you a terrible quick story?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think you've heard this one. So Aaron and I met when we were doing live radio.
I've heard this one.
And
is this your knee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there was this, I would regularly get up and move around because it was just a lot of sitting and I needed to move. And so some days I would just lay on the ground and stretch. And I would look up underneath the broadcast table and there was all this stuff that was underneath there, wires and stuff. And I looked at them and they weren't connected to anything. they're just hanging down and they would hit my knees whenever I would be broadcasting. So just without thinking, I started to just like, as I was doing live radio, I would just grab one and I'd fiddle around with it and I would just pull it out. So
I can't fathom the logic behind doing that.
There is no logic. I was being
chaos
like
monkey.
Just full chaos, childlike energy that has there is no excuse for it except for I was just like, this clearly doesn't go to anything and it's bothering me. And rather than talk to an engineer or my boss about what we can do to get a cover or lower my seat or whatever, I'm just going to take care of this myself. One day the engineer comes in, because the engineer comes in like every quarter just to like make sure everything's working well. And he was like, so what happened underneath here to all my wires?
Oh no.
And everyone was like, what? And I just sort of like fade into the background, like Homer into the bush.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I may have plucked them all just delicately out of there. And he's like, oh, okay. Why? I said, they're poking my knee. And he's like, okay, well, don't do that again. And we'll make sure it doesn't get poked. Like, I don't think it did anything major, but it was more like maybe it was there for reference or something.
Man, I just pulling cables out willy-nilly. Oh, was Aaron so embarrassed?
Aaron is perplexed by me on many levels, and I totally understand it. That was one of the most mindless things I've ever done in my adult life. I'm embarrassed by it, but at the same time, it's like I did that, so I don't want to like pretend like I didn't do that, but I was just mindlessly down there, just like just unraveling.
Well, that makes for a great story.
Does it? Does it? I'm watching a commercial about skin rashes. Isn't that delightful?
Oh, it's these targeted ads are the best, aren't they? They know you so well.
They just see me over here just scratching.
Yeah, practically a Vidian.
Such a gre't opening to me, just like seeing the ship under the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
It's more like a
how the heck did that happen? Uh-oh. We're in trouble.
No.
It's one of my favorite cold opens. Hey, you see what I did there? Cold open.
Cold. Is that going to be the actual cold open of the show too? Because that would be like a thing within a thing within a thing.
Oh, it really would.
Yeah, it would be like layers and layers and layers.
I'm going to have to make this joke in the show because I pulled the cold opens from the show.
Okay, so
right. Just laugh again.
We should probably stop.
Where one?
Where
collecting. You me? Assimilating.
You're what?
Yeah, my collector.
Daniel, do you know who Badgie is?
No, I do not.
You haven't seen Lower Decks?
Have you seen? Yeah.
No, I haven't seen yet. Okay. That's probably I haven't seen that, and I haven't seen Prodigy, are the only two I haven't seen in the.
How would you feel if I told you that Badgie was was like an insane murder hobo?
I would
checks out.
Now I'm very curious. I'm more curious about the show than I was before. I don't know how you get there from any place in the Star Trek universe. But,
you're gonna love Lower Decks then, because you'll be saying that every episode. Nice hat, Ian. Where might somebody have procured one of those? This is my hair.
No, this is Sin Week 22. Your hat.
This is just my hair. No.
Is there a way we could get a hat that just looks like Ian's hair now that that's been put into the universe? Like it says Sin Week 2023 and it's Ian's,
just like
Ian's
the peak,
or like the visors with the hair coming up through it.
That's gotta work. Yeah, that's I'm
sure that everyone wants that.
Yeah, made out of 1,000 eyelashes. Really, really quick. I probably should have done this at the top of the show. But hey, you're going to get it in the outtakes instead. Voyager is in the Delta Quadrant because in episode 1, it was flung across the galaxy by an alien called the Caretaker, who was basically picking species at random to find out if any were genetically compatible to be a host to continue its life. And it needed a host that would continue to look over this species of aliens called the Ocompans. It knew it was going to die, and it needed somebody to take its place. So it would just pull ships at random and then fuck them off. And it was like, you guys don't work, away you go.
Selfishness is the answer.
super selfishness.
And also
Voyager,
selfishness in this episode too. So it's just selfishness everywhere.
All of the selfishness.
We're just spewing it.
So the caretaker does die, but then there's another group of aliens that are going to use his space station to basically kill the Okompans or something like that. So Janeway has to blow it up, and that's their only way home. So then they have to take the long way home instead.
And here's one from Link for you, Daniel. Who is your favorite Star Trek character?
Oh wow, that's difficult because I feel like I appreciate so many of them like in different ways. But in this moment in time, I actually enjoyed the new Spock a lot from Strange New World.
Yes,
I have
He's
to say,
so fucking great.
Get it?
I just think that I forget the actor's name. Is it Ethan?
Ethan Peck.
Ethan Peck.
Oh my god!
He just like his presence as Spock is like so spot on, and I enjoyed the Kelvin timeline. I can't remember.
Zachary Quinto.
Yeah, I enjoyed him as Spock as well, but I think that Ethan Peck really nailed it. So
it's so good.
He's incredible. He's just his line delivery is incredible.
He's my first Spock.
Really?
That's all.
Yeah.
That's
well,
so
I guess
cool.
no. I guess technically I saw a movie. Was it
saw the Kelvin timelines? Yeah, it's Zachary Quinto with Chris Pine.
Yeah. So I saw that guy as Spock, but I didn't really. It wasn't like wow. Whereas this Spock, I'm like, I am in love with that guy. He's amazing.
He is.
Not only is he beautiful, but he has this beautiful voice, and like I like how he's conflicted, and his acting is incredible. Of course, I just love Strange New Worlds. I'm a little bit obsessed with Strange New Worlds. Like it's ruined Picard for me. You know?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I would like to say though, I think that he's great as Spock because I believe that Leonard Nimoy set such a high bar. I would like to say that I don't want to overshadow that performance, but I think that he set the bar so high that if you're coming as Spock, you have to bring it. So
yeah,
totally agree.
Fake snow, says Lloyd on YouTube, is sometimes damp shredded paper. God, that must smell so weird. I can kind of smell that. I can smell paper mache right now, but I know that's glue also. But still, ugh.
I like the implication that the Doctor turned himself off before the ship crashed in a potential crisis. Oh no! Yeah, he just like yeet. Shit's going bad. Computer deactivate program.
My sin is that this lady is super into wanting to erase the last 15 years of her life for no real reason other than I love you, Chakotay.
It's insane. Like, is that how the relationship started? We know nothing about why she's on board with this. It's
they have a secret. They have a very dark secret. They don't want to. Yeah. They don't want to deal with it.
They want to delete this timeline.
This is they need nasty. Out. Jack had said technically this version of Kim isn't even the original Kim because of that alt universe episode where the Vindians tried to capture them. So maybe inside Voyager itself, there's an episode where there was another time travel thing.
Shit.
So this is a new version of Kim.
So this is an early episode where there's Voyager finds a distress call from itself and eventually works out that there's some weird time loop shenanigans going on, and there's two Voyagers that are like parallel. One of them's getting the shit beaten out of it so much, and they, long story short, have to help each other, but one of them has to blow up, and the original Harry Kim dies, so the Harry Kim from the other Voyager joins the ship, and it's
so this
really
is a totally different one.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
wow.
It's called,
wow.
Oh, what's that? Deadlock. The episode's called Deadlock, and it's like season 2 or something, or maybe season 1. But it's like the original. It's actually our Voyager is the one that gets destroyed. And so it may actually be that Harry Kim is the only original surviving crew member, and all of the others are alternate people. But it's the same timeline. It's just branched off. Yeah, it's Deadlift. Deadlock is a great episode.
Just imagine you're Starfleet. You're a counselor in Starfleet. You know, you're a psychologist or whatever, and you're counseling all these people who go out into space and have these insane things happen and then come back and need to digest it.
I can't understand this story.
And Harry walks in and he's like, I killed everyone, but also they were already dead anyway. And I was already... He's like, I don't know what matters anymore. And he's just totally this broken man. Like, I want that series.
It's wild. That would be great.
Here's one from Jagged. CinemaSins Live. Joined at the hip means inseparable. Two people who are so close that they are almost considered one person. The idiom joined at the hip appeared in the 1960s in American English. It is assumed that it stems from the phenomenon of conjoined twins, formerly known as Siamese twins.
It's a sex thing. I don't care what it's a sex thing. Joined at the hip means joined at the penis and vagina. Like, that's exactly what it means.
Hip. That's the pelvis.
It's near the hip. It's hip adjacent. You try and do that without hips touching at some point.
You're not listening to what the chat has clearly gone to look up.
I'm listening. I reject their reality and substitute my own.
I love that the chat is exploding right now with like, how are you sexing, Ian? Like, how are you sexing?
Just do it. Ian, where is your penis? That's none of your business.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Here's a question from like, why didn't they try to warp away from Geordi?
I think there's a point where the Delta Flyer is more maneuverable at impulse. So the Challenger can outrun them at warp, but can't keep up with them at impulse because it can like fly around and do all of the stuff. I mean, everything we see on screen is that they're running in a straight fucking line, but in theory, at impulse, smaller ships are more maneuverable. I think, if I'm being generous, that's the logic.
Okay, what about this question? Voyager has beamed the whole Delta Flyer into the Voyager. Why can't Geordi just do that?
Yes, absolutely could, but shields and stuff and modulating things.
It's what Daniel was talking about earlier, like, because that's not the point of the plot of this episode.
Because we wouldn't be able to wreck the timeline is the answer.
Here's one from Josh there who says, remember the scene in Beyond where the Franklin was surfing on the wave of Krall's drones while blowing them up with VHF noise, aka sabotage? That was such an awesome shot. I don't know.
I love it.
Yes.
It's so good.
They do.
I feel like that was a divisive moment, wasn't it? In terms of Star Trek, like some people did not like that at all, and I thought it was one of the funnest like Star Trek things I had ever seen.
It's so much fun, and just Chris Pine is just sitting in the moment, just like, great song.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's such a great moment, such a unique way to like be a bad guy as well. Beyond was just like, whatever, who cares? Everyone knows this is a different universe. Let's just have fun. I love Beyond for that. See, the immediate reaction was a bit but over time, Beyond is gaining a lot of love. A whole lot of love.
Well, we were talking about Geordi LaForge's career path. Jagged points out, in 15 years, he didn't change his career path. Maybe the destruction of the Voyager inspired him to become a captain.
What the fuck does he care about Voyager? He doesn't know anyone on that ship.
You don't
That's
know.
Some bullshit. He doesn't care.
They don't know what happened to Voyager because like the Delta Flyer makes it back to Earth.
Yeah, they gave up.
And they have no idea what happened to Voyager. So I mean, maybe the search for Voyager propelled him into becoming a captain, but
maybe. I'm not buying.
But then I feel like it probably would have been the relationship to Harry would have been different. Like if he had spent any time like looking for the ship.
Yeah. I agree.
No, I agree.
Here's a question from Kachar. Is the Doctor hollow? Or does the hollow projection also include all the inner stuff to make him tick? This is a great question because you do see him be patted on the shoulder and he is a solid being. And I think I remember that he's like, this is the technology that allows a holodeck simulated person to kind of move around in an environment because he's wearing something on his shoulder that keeps him activated so that he can actually be present. And then depending on the need, like you can alter it to where he's solid, but then he's potentially able to be destroyed. But I can't remember that part because this came up in Picard as well. All of the members of the ship. What was the ship's name? The red one behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one has similar things where there's their security protocol. I remember popped up once on Picard and it was like they're all holodeck until they don't need to be holodeck anymore because the technology has advanced somehow.
There is an episode in something, I forget, but it is, I mean, because they physically interact with all the like objects and people on the holodeck. So it is like, I forget how it's explained, but I think there's a holodeck episode where they may give some technical mumbo jumbo explanation for it.
Well, the Doctor can choose. He can choose whether things can pass through him or whether he has physical. You can touch him. It's all force fields and whatever. They don't fully explain it, but when he needs to pick up a hypo spray, yes, he has physical forms. But if someone's going to swing a punch at him, then
he can go.
He can be just light and stuff. And it's funny when his program glitches because he'll pick up like a tray of something. There'll be a power surge, and then he'll like shudder, and the tray will fall through his fingers, and he's like, "This is so inconvenient." Just pick it up again. So the holo emitter is, unsurprisingly, it's technology that came from the future. So
yes, for reasons.
It's from the year 3000.
The year 3000.
Exactly. And that allows him to leave the ship. It's a portable holo emitter. So usually holograms have to be where there is a holo emitter, but this allows him to go wherever he wants. But he has to stay solid because it has to hold on to something. So while he's wearing that, he's always a solid thing.
And there you go. Makes no more sense, but...
Oh, shit. Screw you, Nick. Nick just proved me wrong. Yeah, you're right.
What did he do?
So Nick just said that in that episode where he gets the mobile emitter and they go back in time to 1995, he gets shot with bullets and they go through him. I don't understand why that works.
In other words, you've come here for all of the answers to Star Trek questions, and yet you leave with more.
Yeah, the problem is Star Trek isn't consistent. Move on.
I could give a slight answer for that, because like for him to allow matter to pass through him, the entire structure doesn't need to become not solid.
Ooh,
so
like he can kind of choose.
Yeah, so it's like if his legs are solid, then like you can kind of, what's that, like Vision in Marvel, sort of.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Ooh.
Also, why would the Doctor care if he gets shot? Take the bullet. What's gonna happen?
That is another question. Yeah, why didn't they just like bounce off him if he's just like force fields or something?
Yeah, that's really strange. We don't know. We don't understand.
A hazard by letting those bullets just fly wherever they were going.
Right.
Hit somebody else.
Ricochet is an issue.
Just, oh my god, just hit somebody behind him. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'll meet me in sick bay. I'll take care of that for you.
Bad. Yeah. Oops. Bum 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 bum.
Why, yes, I still record on my ancient recording devices. Because why upgrade when the dinosaur still works just fine? Get off my lawn!